Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to all you questionable men who are interested in Fiats. Today we've got a 2012 Fiat 500 Pop at the 1.4 liter sold in North America. It's a non-turbo, but it does have air conditioning. I've done a little bit of research and looked at other videos and write-ups on how to remove your alternator. And most of those other videos and recommendations involve unnecessary steps. Now there's two parts of this job that are difficult. One is removing the top bolt on the alternator, and the other is, once you've got the alternator unbolted, getting it out from inside the car, out past that axle and engine. And before you get started, you're gonna have to do a few preliminary things that are pretty easy. I think you're gonna know how to do those, so I'm not gonna show you. You gotta jack up the car high enough so that you can work comfortably under it. You gotta remove the battery terminal, the negative. Gotta remove the right front wheel, the fender liner, plastic liner that goes in here. There's a bracket which goes right there. Gotta remove that. And then you gotta remove that plastic splash guard, which goes right here behind the bracket. Once you've done all that, you can get to the Serpentine Belt. Now, before you take your belt off your car, I always think it's wise to make a diagram which shows the belt routing, and then try to compare that to an official source, something like the service manual. Now, I wasn't able to find a good belt diagram for my vehicle, so I made this one. Even the one in the service manual was drawn at a isometric angle, and it was hard to read. Once you've got that belt diagram drawn up, put a wrench there on that idler pulley. This guy right here. And from there you can put a little pressure in this direction, which will slacken the belt. And the belt is easy to remove off this idler pulley, because that's the only wheel on which it rides with its flat backside instead of the ribs. Once you've got that belt removed, you can get under the vehicle and get access to the alternator through this hole here behind the right front axle. Now my alternator is already removed, but you're going to have fairly easy access to the two wires. And then there are three mounting bolts. All three are 13 millimeter. The two on the bottom you're going to have fairly easy access to, and you'll be able to see them. The top bolt is quite a bear to get out, let me tell you. And I can't offer any advice that makes it that much easier, unfortunately. Now what I did was, I used a socket extension. Here's the wrench and the extension that I used on that top bolt. Now these extensions wobble. I don't know if that helped me or hurt me, but I was successful. I was able to break the bolt loose with this wrench, and after that all the work was just done like this, just spinning with my fingers. I could barely reach it. That's all I could do, but it did work. It's quite difficult. One thing that's going to help you is understanding the position of that top bolt before you get started. Now, on the alternator itself, there's a fin down here on the bottom next to the two mounting bolts. And this one you can see and touch. Now there's a corresponding fin here at the top. I wasn't able to see or touch this one when it was on the vehicle, but you can use the position of the bottom one to guess where the top is, and know that just to the left, at just about there, that's where your bolt is. So you're going to have to go in blind and just guess until you think you've got that socket. on the appropriate nut or bolt. It's going to take a bit of work, a bit of guessing. All three of these bolts have a service manual torque specification of 18 foot-pounds, and when reinstalling, it might be a good idea to use anti-seize on them. Because if you have to do this job again and that top bolt is any harder to get out, woo! Lord have 'em. I also think it's wise to remove one of the bottom bolts and loosen the other bottom bolt substantially before you begin the top bolt. That will allow the alternator to wiggle a little bit, and you can use that wiggleability as a judge to track your progress on the top bolt. You can also wiggle it if the bolt happens to be stuck, because you don't have much leverage with just the fingertips on the end of that extension. You wiggle it a little bit and you might free up the rotation of that bolt. And I took that socket extension and I reached up in a small gap that was right here against the firewall, and I laid it down above this here. I think that's an AC hose. I laid it above that, so this hose was just supporting the very end of my extension where the ratchet would go. It just cradled right there nicely in there, believe it or not, and that's what lined up. Now there's that post there. That's where the bolt goes in. Unfortunately, it's quite difficult. Yeah, I was able to use my fingers here like this, just spinning it out. It's going to take some time and some patience. Once you've got that alternator totally unbolted, this is the part of this method that will really help you, and I think it's substantially easier than some of the other methods out there. What you're going to do is put a jack under the engine to support it. Take out the slack there. You're going to come up top, open your hood, get rid of all this pasta that's built up. Take out your one bolt there for the coolant reservoir. Get that thing out of the way. Then there are 3 bolts on this right front engine mount. 1, 2, 3. And all of those have a service manual torque specification of 44 foot-pounds, by the way. Once those are removed, you can jack up the engine approximately 3 inches. I jacked it up high enough so that this air box here is touching the firewall lip. Now with the engine in this position, this gap right here is large enough that you could sneak that alternator out so long as you got it in the proper orientation. Which is approximately that, with these leads here close to the 5 o'clock position. With a little wiggling, not too hard to get that in and out. There you go. When you're doing this job, it's also a good time to replace the belt itself. You can also replace the belt tensioner if you'd like to. And I think it's also a good time to replace the multi-air filter, because the engine is jacked up and you can get access to it. Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but that multi-air filter lives somewhere right in there under that timing belt cover. I got that part on order. I'm gonna get that in there too, I think. Yeah, I think that's coming out. I don't know. It's not a normal maintenance item, but a lot of people recommend you change that. This car is 85,000 miles and I've never changed that, so maybe it's worth a shot. It's about a $20 part, so why not? And well, if you've done all that, and if your driver's still there, waiting patiently, and if she's a good girl, I think some treats are in order. Yeah. 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 I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think some treats are in order. What do you think? What do you think, huh? You good girl. You good girl. It's a good girl.